recently, but over the course of the years. And my attitude was, and I actually called on some coaches of mine, Jerry Nairn and a guy named Lynn Strelitz, who was a pitching coach for me in rookie ball, and kind of talked with them when those job offers were out there from the Rangers, and got some guidance from them. If I got into pro ball, I would want to manage at some level, and if I would start at the rookie ball level and work my way up just like I did before, which is what anybody should have to do. But I love amateur baseball, and if I could say this is what I want to do, it'd be coach a college team. In Texas Wesleyan, Mike Jeffcoat, he was great to me when I was out there for a year. I really wanted to see if everything I believed I could put into play there, and I did, and it panned out pretty good. And I just love that amateur baseball.
Well, I can tell you're passionate about it, and our listeners, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Coach Rusty Greer on the field at one of the college teams, whether it's in Dallas-Fort Worth or somewhere else, here in the next couple of years.
You might have to talk to my wife about that.
Rusty, you were not only a great hitter with a .305 lifetime batting average, but considered a great defensive outfielder as well. You've now started the Rusty Greer Baseball School, based here in the Colleyville, Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth area, primarily focused on defense. On the research I did, how did all this come together?
Well, I was given hitting lessons, and I did that for, 6 or 7 months. And, I was sitting in the cage one day, and I'd been in there for 5 hours, and I'm kind of cage blind. I'm looking around, and you have hitting instructors and pitching instructors in different cages, and we're all teaching something different, which hitting's the hardest thing to transfer into the game. You can do everything mechanically right, square a ball up, and still make an out. And then pitching's the next hardest thing to transfer, in my opinion. And so I'm sitting there watching. I had a break, and I'm watching. I'm going, where are we missing the boat with these young athletes? And I said, it's defense. Nobody teaches defense. And I've watched guys hit ground balls to players in the cage in a batting tunnel, but you can't mimic a two-hop backhand in the hole at short and third and a throw across a diamond in a cage. And so I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start teaching defense. I'm going to separate myself from your typical hitting instructor. I'm going to get something that, from what I know, hasn't been offered. And I'm going to start my defensive school. And so that's what I did. So last summer, this all came about over the course of a couple months. Last summer was my first summer. And I do small group, position-specific camps in the summer. So let's take a middle infield camp, for example. It is 3 days long. So I started my defensive school, and so the position-specific camps, they're small groups. So for a middle infield camp, for example, it's 3 days long. It's 8 to noon. There's 12 kids, and we learn to play the middle infield. Ground ball, we start from the ground floor, ground balls, double play turns, cutoffs and relays, pop-ups in the triangle, pop-ups in the center, everything you can imagine. So each position has its own 2 or 3 day session. So the middle infield is a 3-day session. Everywhere else is a 2-day session. And that stop-down instruction, I teach them what to do. And so I do that all summer. And then in the fall and winter, I have what I call skill and drill nights. And I do it all at the Parks at Texas Star. Turf infields, nice complex, located in, central DFW. Skill and drill nights in the fall from September through into January. And basically what that is, have 20 to 25 kids on the diamond at once. They're all broken up. They go where they want to in their position. And it is rep-based. So I promise them, in the summertime I promise instruction. Fall and winter I promise reps. And so I have 7 machines, guys dropping balls into machines. And it is ground ball after ground ball after ground ball. So kind of the routine there is we stretch and throw. Then the middle 30 minutes, we stretch and throw for 30. The middle 30 minutes, we take ground balls right at us, backhand and forehand, 10-minute segments, and we drop them in a bucket. And then the last 30, we all do something different. So the first baseman may be flipping into the net at first as a pitcher cover. Third baseman may be filling a slow roller, throwing across a diamond. Shortstop and second baseman are initiating double play turns. Next 10 minutes, everybody does something different. So at the end, we throw 3,500 balls plus a night through our machines. Kids are 150, 160 ground balls a night. I do it 4 nights a week. There's 2 sessions a night. It's unlimited. You can pick and choose the sessions you want to come to, and it's a membership-based deal. So it's strictly defense.
Rusty, and for our listeners, I'll post in the podcast description a link to your website, but where can they find you online?
It's www.rustygreerbaseballschool.com. rustygreerbaseballschool.com. And it's so I've had this being the first, I'm going into my second summer, and the response has been phenomenal, because people, and that's why early in the interview I was talking about it's okay to focus on yourself. In the fall and winter is a great time to focus on yourself, and the steps that people make just through the course of repetition is tremendous. And I have kids that are 6 working with kids that are 16, because my belief is that I want that older kid to understand that, hey, it's okay to work out with a 6-year-old, 7 or 8-year-old. Talk to him. In other words, get them out of their bubble a little bit. I want the younger kid, the 8, 9-year-old kid, to work out with that elite 13 or 14, 15-year-old kid, because he wants to be like him.
Yeah, he can skill up.
Skill up. Those younger players look to those older kids as big leaguers, and they want to skill up and improve their game. So it's almost like it's not a competition, but inside, I'm gonna try it this way and see if I can work it. So I believe that having that mix, and the young kids, the funny thing is that the young kid, the speed on the machines is turned up to where my kid comes out and takes ground balls, high school kid. And the number of 6, 7, and 8-year-old kids that'll stick their nose in on a high school ground ball and catch it and they can do it. It's just they haven't been expected to. And now they get out there, and not only do they want to do it, they're telling me at times, turn the machine up, because the ball's not coming hard enough to them. And so now they're training above their head. And so when they start going back to their age group, they've had balls thrown at them that they're not going to see for 5, 6, 7 more years. And so it's good. And the other part about it I like is that I have kids that when they first got there, I call it the bubble. They're in their own little bubble. And so when they get there, they don't know anybody. They're thrown into a fire, don't know anybody. But by the time they leave, you now have a kid from Saginaw that knows a kid from Aledo, that knows a kid from McKinney, that knows a kid from this, and now...
That's what's great about baseball. You don't get that in other sports.
So now they're out of that bubble. They've met kids, and what they don't realize either is they're going to be playing against each other for years to come in the travel ball world. And so it's really neat to see the growth, and I've had kids come in that struggled at first, and all of a sudden, because they're out there with players that are better than them and they're catching ground balls, the switch goes on, and here you go. So it's really neat to see. So I try to offer something that really nobody else is, and it's something specifically designed for that glove. Because I tell my kid all the time, the one thing that you can count on is you will go into a slump hitting. Nobody is going to hit 400 forever. But what keeps you in that lineup is that glove. That's what keeps you. If you can defend, it's hard to take somebody out of the lineup, because the bat will come back around. But if you can defend, and I tell him this, I say, your bat's going to slump, but the glove can be there every day. And you should really never go into a defensive slump. Whereas, now you're going to have errors and stuff, but not like hitting. Where you're hitting 400 and you're feeling good about yourself, and all of a sudden you're 0 for 15, and the way you stay on the field is that glove.
Rusty, you've been a great guest here on the show, and I know you've done some radio work and some TV work in the past. Have you thought about getting in the media business? No,
not really. I've had the conversation about potentially doing some stuff, but nothing concrete. It's something that while I don't mind doing it, I don't mind giving interviews. I don't mind talking to the media. I don't know that I would want to go and call a game for 162 games. I could do a dozen, but nothing's out of the question. It's if the right deal came along and it fit where I was at that point in time, then I'd give it a whirl. I'm not afraid to give it a whirl.
Rusty, this has been fantastic. For all our listeners out there, how can they connect with you and find out more about all the things that you have going on?
They can go to my website, which is rustygreerbaseballschool.com. They can follow on Twitter. It's at @rgreerbaseball. Or Facebook, which is Rusty Greer Baseball School. One of those 3 ways is a good way to keep up with it and see what's happening and get a kind of a better feel for what we actually do at my school, which is, like I said earlier, it's nothing like what anybody's seen as far as defensive stuff goes.
For those kids out there, and parents actually, that 10, 11-year-old kid that's maybe struggling, they've got a long way to go as far as their physical development, but they're getting a little put out with the game. Baseball is one of those games that can get frustrating. What would you tell them if they're thinking about giving it up and quitting?
I wouldn't give it up and quit. I would understand that it's not life or death, meaning, and I've learned this over the course of coaching my kid all the way through and dealing with other younger kids and parents for that matter, that 10 or 11 years old is way too early to be, one, worried about everybody wants to be successful. In a game of baseball, you're going to strike out. You're going to make errors. It's a game of failure. And so going back to what we said earlier, keep working. Don't give up at it. Keep working, because that same 10-year-old that may be hitting balls 9,000 feet is a 10-year-old. And the same 10-year-old that may not be able to put the ball in play in 2 years, once that development growth starts happening, and those roles could flip-flop. So it's a game of ebb and flow. And I would also encourage the parents out there, let them while the goal is to go out and win, let those kids develop, get them with a good coach, let them develop, and understand that just like with me, my time with seeing my kid play all the time is coming to an end, and it goes by super quick. And the fact that we may not win this tournament, it's the object should be to develop those guys, to develop those kids as individual players with the goal of reaching college. Because that's my sole goal right now at the level that my kids are at, is the wins and losses will happen, but my goal is to get them to college baseball. And I'll do so if we lose a game, but we've got a couple kids that are uncommitted that do well, I'm happy for them. I'm not upset about that game. And likewise, going back to the 10, 11-year-old, it's fun to win, but it's not necessary to play 60, 70, 80 games to accomplish that, because that time's coming. Like my kid starts in January and don't get done until July. So that time's coming. Let them be kids. Let them enjoy it. Yes, we want to win. They got a scoreboard for a reason, no question. And at the end of the day, it is about having fun, but it's about winning, but it's about winning in the right way. Development of that player, development of that kid, cultivating that love of the game to where, let's just say he moves on and he's not a baseball player. There's so many jobs in the baseball world that if that love is developed, he could have an impact in a different way, maybe not on the field, but in a different way. So I would just encourage them to stay the course and let those kids be kids. And I wish that I had taken that advice and listened when people were telling me that, because I was a coach and a dad and I wanted to win. And so for me, it's about developing that player and doing what you can to increase his skill level.
Well, baseball is a game of failure, so for our audience that just heard that might be one of the best takeaways of the podcast. And Rusty, it's been great talking to you today. I know you're passionate about the game and what the future holds for you. And you've been a great guest here on Behind the Dish.
Well, I appreciate you having me. It's been fun.
DBAT is the premier provider of baseball and softball training since 1998, with almost 50 locations nationwide. Check out dbatsports.com for a location near you.